What's up, amigos? It's your buddy Ross-a-roo. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't want to do this today. I don't want to do this today. I'm not looking forward to doing this, but part of the promise was I'm just going to keep doing this, so I'm doing this. As you can see, some technical upgrades have been made, and I want to thank the people who watched this. You know, I thought it was going to be very few of you, but it ended up being double digits. I'm talking low teens, 12 people watched the show. I want to thank you. Some people even watched it till the end. I didn't watch it till the end. But yeah, I just wanted to give a shout out and say thank you for doing so. And I hope it wasn't too cringy, and I hope I keep getting better at this, and you could say you were a part of it. With that said, I want to jump into the topic I want to talk about today. A buddy of mine, his dad, growing up, would ask him a question. To give you a little background of my buddy, he's involved in Sacramento politics. Great guy, Republican, and happens to be black. His dad is from Africa. So when they moved here, much like my family as immigrants, they had to live in the hood. And the question his dad would ask him is, what makes a dangerous neighborhood a dangerous neighborhood? If I was to look at ghettos I've been to, like in America, they got running water, they got roads, the post office goes there, they got electricity. But what would happen if we were to take a ghetto, let's say Compton. We were to take Compton and the roughest parts, and we were to replace the people in that community with the burners from Burning Man. Or if we were to replace them with poor hippies from a commune in Eureka. Or pick enough villages in Norway to fill it all up with Norwegians. Would it still be a dangerous neighborhood? No. It was a community of burners. There'd be chicks in bikinis with hula hoops. They'd be handing out free hot dogs. The Amish probably selling raw milk. It would be peaceful. It would be a peaceful neighborhood. If hippies, Amish people, burners, same exact place, same exact location, if you were just to replace the people with the people who have a different mindset, it would stop being a dangerous neighborhood. So what makes a dangerous neighborhood is the people. And what I want to discuss is how people and primarily the culture of people affects your surrounding. Andrew Breitbart, who, to be honest with you, I was not really much of a fan or really cared much about him when he was alive. I was more a libertarian purist back then. And, you know, I'd hear about him on the side, and sometimes he'd make good points, and sometimes he wouldn't. But the one point he made, which really stuck with me, is he said that politics is downstream from culture. You want to change politics? You change the culture. The way I like to think of it is that government is the shadow of culture. You move culture around, you're going to change government. I'll give you an example. So here in America, so far, we still have, for the most part, freedom of speech. Some would say that we have freedom of speech because we have a constitution. Okay. But what would happen if our culture shifted and 99% of people stopped believing in freedom of speech? That was no longer a priority. How long would it take until the First Amendment is gone? It wouldn't take very long at all. 99% of us didn't believe in freedom of speech. So what that tells you is that government, laws, society is really a reflection of culture. Now, I get called a racist on the internet quite often. It's become a compliment, because I know as soon as someone throws the race card at me, I know I'm doing something right and they have no valid points past that. But truth be told, I'm far from a racial supremacist. I have no problem telling you what I am. And I am not a racial supremacist. I am a supremacist, but I believe in supremacy of culture. Now, many on the left would attribute culture and race, and they can't separate the two. But that's not true. If it was beneficial for me tomorrow to act like a fucking cholo, I'd dress up and act like a fucking cholo. You have, it's that repeated theme where the left doesn't highlight the will of the individual. Truth be told, you could pick whatever culture you want. You could be a punk rocker tomorrow, you could be a metalhead, you could be a hip hop head, you could be whatever you want. You could change your culture, and it's this culture that creates your environment. And I'm going to give you some, bird's eye view examples. Those of you who know, when I was younger, and by younger I mean high school, late teens, I was a radical Sharia-pushing Muslim. One day I'll get into greater detail for why I left. But the only commonality my politics have had my whole life is that I'm always a radical. I can't help it. Might be the Iranian in me. I like being on the fringe. I like pushing things to their limits. And before I became a libertarian, right before I became a libertarian, I was a very stout jihadi Muslim. I wanted Sharia law to take over the American government. My parents, who are the more like the hippie, hey man, we got crystals, like Muslims, they were even concerned. They were concerned that I was getting a little too radicalized at the time. But that's besides the point. One day I'll get into why I left and how I found libertarianism. But I know quite a bit about the Muslim world. I've been to the Muslim countries in person in my adult life. And I can tell you, it's no surprise why every Muslim country has an authoritarian dictatorship. Why? Because Islam itself is an authoritarian religion that instills an authoritarian culture. When you have to deal with a large group of people who believe that the only way to get shit done and believe that the only way to instill values and principles and shift the world is through an authoritarian stance, then don't be too surprised when their government is also authoritarian. This example can be seen quite a bit. In contrast to the Muslim world, let's look at the Western world. Now, the Western world has its problems, but if you walk into any Western country, you'd notice that their culture values, for the most part, freedom and individuality and democracy. Now, these are things that I'm not necessarily wholeheartedly agree with, but the fact that the culture loves that aspect, and that's part of the culture, is undeniable. And because when someone believes in freedom, they understand that with freedom comes responsibility. They believe that not only does this freedom apply to themselves, but to the people around them, and that with freedom comes that responsibility of self-accountability, of realizing that if you abide by freedom, you're going to self-govern. Because the second you start infringing on the freedom of others, that karma eventually comes back to you. Now, within Western culture, let's look at another example. Let's look at Antifa. Antifa is an authoritarian left ideology. They believe in communism. Communism is a centralized power that tells the people how to conduct themselves, tells the economy how to conduct itself. When you look at Antifa as a culture, it's clearly a culture of destruction and authoritarianism. They don't believe in dialogue. They believe in shutting people down. They believe in burning the cities to the ground to get what they want. That's an authoritarian culture. And that's an authoritarian culture that creates an authoritarian government. If everyone was to leave and Antifa was just to take over, the very culture they partook in order to subvert society and destroy it is the same culture that's going to mold this authoritarian left government. If we were to expand out within the American political landscape, let's take Democrats. Now, I hesitated on mentioning what I'm about to mention because it's a debate tool I often use to corner Democrats to show them who they really are. And here's what I do. Go up to any one of your Democrat friends or family and have a list of 10, 15, 20 societal issues, right? Things that we can agree society needs to improve upon. Go up to your Democrat friend or family and ask them how they would address these issues. I'll bet you dollars to donuts, every single one of these issues, their solution involves government infringement. It involves the government, essentially. And what does that mean? What that means is, hey, what if we all convince the government to use all their guns and power to put a gun to everyone's head so that we could see the world we want come to fruition? That's the only language they understand. Anything that's societal, anything that is something that a change they want to see in the world, the only way they can envision it coming to reality is if a government entity puts a gun to all of our heads and forces it down our throat. Is that the only way to create change? One example I love providing is Toms. Those shoes that the hipsters all wore. I don't know if they're still wearing them. Toms. This guy Tom, I'm assuming his name is Tom. He wanted a bunch of poor Mongolians or some shit to have shoes because he went and he noticed that none of them had any shoes. Whatever. He saw something in the world he didn't like, and he wanted to see a change. Now, this Tom guy, for all I know, it could be a Democrat, but he didn't go and campaign and convince some government entity to take a portion of tax money and send it to this poor country to make shoes. No. He came up with an idea where, hey, what if I sold these shoes at a certain price where I double my cost, and I double my cost, and when I sell it to these wealthy Americans, part of the marketing strategy is that some poor kid on the other side of the globe gets a free pair of shoes as well. So not only did he solve this problem creatively, by finding a voluntary means. Voluntary means, that is a key word, a voluntary means. You involve the government, it is not voluntary. Nothing the government does is voluntary. That's why it's government related, is because they have a strong centralized power and they could force you, they could subdue you to do something. So he found a voluntary means where us rich Amerians voluntarily forked out some extra money, got ourselves some shoes, and some kids overseas some shoes. This is why I say the left is intellectually lazy. When you ask your friend, and hopefully this video doesn't go viral, go up to your Democrat friends, ask them a list of questions, and then point out to them that, hey, did you notice that all of your solutions involve the government? So based on this anecdotal experience I've had with every Democrat, and you do the same. Tell me what you come back with. They have a culture of big brother authoritarianism. Their culture, their mindset is that the only way to get shit done is through the government. Now, they might not believe the only, but they believe it's the efficient way. Or at least you could say that's the path that they take. The Democrats in charge, that culture propagates and becomes the shadow, which is the government, and you get a nanny state. Now, Republicans, Republicans for me are very bittersweet. I think the best thing that happened to the Republican Party in the last 50 years was Ron Paul. And Ron Paul really ignited the intellectual core of Republicanism, and we've done a pretty darn good job at weeding out the neocons, really pushing them out. I loved it when Bush Sr. said he's not voting for Trump, because it kind of implied he's voting for Hillary. Maybe he voted Libertarian, I don't know. But good, get the fuck out of the Republican Party. I'll get into why I don't like neocons, but when you see conservative, and by the way, I am not a conservative, I'm right-wing, and I'll get into that more later. When I see conservative voices, leading conservative voices, like Ben Shapiro, who I respect, I got some disagreements with him, but 95% eye to eye. When I see them, the conservative figureheads and leading voices claim to be libertarian, then that tells me that we won. There wasn't a big celebration, but we won. But anyways, let's talk about Republicans, though. If you were to look at Republican culture, and I'm going to stick to one point in particular, let's just stick to gun rights, right? Someone who believes in gun rights, without necessarily directly saying it, also believes in self-accountability and personal responsibility. Because if you believe just any fucking idiot on the street should own a gun, which we do, yeah, any fucking idiot. There's some people agree on some restrictions, we're not going to get into that, but let's just, for the sake of conversation, say any fucking idiot. If you believe any fucking idiot, some of which could be your neighbors, can go out and buy an AR-15, and that actually says a lot about your culture and your worldview. That says that you abide by a culture that believes in self-accountability, self-responsibility, and freedom. And along with that freedom, you understand the risks that come into play. Now, that's a culture I'd rather be a part of. I don't listen to country music. I think that shit sucks. I call it rap music for white people because that's exactly what it is. Some shitty, stupid fucking jingle full of a bunch of nonsense and not really much musical talent required to create it. But I'll tell you this much, man. I love going to country concerts. Country concerts are some of the most friendly, welcoming, peaceful times you'll ever have. If you're a black dude, the one black guy watching this show, go to a country concert. I promise you'll have a great time. You'll probably go in thinking there's going to be some racism and this and that, but no, you got to come to grips that yes, some cultures aren't perfect, but But right-wing culture, conservative culture, is a much more healthy culture that would create a much more healthy environment and a much more manageable government. It's a step in the right direction, no pun intended. So anyways, as I said, my show, is about solutions. And I think I want to do the first half theory, second half application. So second half is the solution. What is the solution? So we understand that we're a culture, and this is indeed a culture war, and it's our culture that we need to propagate. What are some ideas you have about how do you propagate a culture? How do you spread the good word? I'll tell you the first thing that comes to my mind is religious institutions. You know, I'm not a religious person. I'm an agnostic deist. And one day I'll get more into that. But religions do a great job at marketing. Jesus Christ. You know, and they do a great job at building a community. And where I'm getting at with this is everyone needs to go out of their way. And as I mentioned last time, for us in the right, we need to treat politics as an act of charity. This is not our livelihood. At least not for now. We need to do this as an act of charity. And what I'm going to suggest to you is go out of your way to connect with right-leaning, conservative, libertarian types of people and create more friends. You know, I've been pretty public about my politics for quite some time. And, you know, one of the positive side effects of that is I made a shit ton of libertarian friends in any given city of the United States of America. Even overseas. I even have libertarian, anarcho-capitalist, voluntarist, whatever you want to call it, friends overseas. I've created a large network. Why? Because I took the time to get my voice out there. And you can too. So if you're one of those people that says, oh my God, like I could never vent or talk about this stuff to anyone, that's your fucking fault. You're the problem. Go on the internet. Find some local libertarian meetups. I want to give a shout out to my friend Jules and Daria. They have monthly barbecues. I went to the last one. It was a fucking fantastic time. And you know, the one thing I've noticed is as soon as you come across other libertarians, as soon as you come across other volunteers, people who share your political mindset, you guys are friends off the cuff. We got along. We had a fucking blast. And we networked. Some people even connected businesses. So what I'm going to propose as a solution, one of many solutions, is create a libertarian community. Make libertarian friends. Go out of your way. Have a potluck. Have a cookout. And fucking light a bowl. You know, do whatever you can. We have the internet. You have Twitter. You have Instagram. You have Facebook. It doesn't take much effort to find local libertarians, local conservatives, local right-wing members, and build on that culture and recruit and propagate. Not bad for being in a shitty mood. I hope you like this. DM me, call me, most importantly, love me. And I can't wait to chat with you all next week. Adios.